Welcome to Per Her Perspective, a podcast of raw, relatable conversations on leadership, challenges, and solutions in running a business, often with the support of smart peers. The show inspires business owners to grow, make bold decisions, and go bigger with confidence. I'm your host, Marla Noel. Let's get started. Hello. Today I am interviewing Carly Markesich, who started a gymnastics school for children, Discover Gymnastics, which she operated for about 26 years before she sold the business to one of her employees. Carly now runs a nonprofit called Discover Fitness Foundation, or DFF, which she started while still running her gymnastics business, a typical entrepreneur doing 5 things at one time, or her day job. She's also beginning her journey as a chapter chair with Women's Presidents Organization, or WPO. So, Carly, welcome to Per Her Perspective.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell me about how you got started in the business. What did that look like?
In gymnastics business. So my very first job after high school in my first round of college was coaching gymnastics. So it was great pocket change, spending money in school. And when I moved to Texas, it wasn't the first job I took, but I started coaching at a very good gym here in the Houston area. And then went back to school and finished my degree and went into the corporate world, and was coaching at night part-time, just to keep my foot in the door there. And I thought, I'm running a really big business for this big company, a division of their company, and I'm like, I could run a business, I could run a gym. And so I set out on that course. It took 7 years from the moment I thought that up, writing the business plan, negotiating a lease. That was the hardest part. And getting the money together from like very minimal amount of money. I started with nothing. It was really bare bones.
And I hear that a lot, but you talked about borrowing money, and a lot of women business owners actually don't borrow money to get started and might have an easier time if they did so. What did that look like for you?
So I started with a really small budget. It was $50,000. It was not much. And so every dime that the company made, I had to just keep dumping it back in. But it was borrowed. It was a little bit of my own money, family, friends, people who believed in me. And then I got a micro loan from the CEDHC, the Council for Economic Development in Harris County. I was referred to that program through SCORE. So
good, very good. I participate in SCORE. So there's so many people that don't know what SCORE is.
Oh, it's fantastic.
It's fantastic because most of the time it's amazing education or coaching from experienced business people who are retired, most of them, and it's free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
What
great
could be better than
them. I had a wonderful mentor through SCORE, and he's the one that directed me to CEDHC for the microloan, and the bank. He thought the bank that would be a good fit for me as well. So, and then through the bank, I did about a year and a half in, I think, I went to the bank for equipment loan. I needed to add equipment, and I was going to expand into a larger space on the same property. So I did get a small equipment loan as well. So, yeah, your family and friends will help some. My sister fed me. I didn't have money for food, but, at some point you probably should, just to build credit in the business world, even if it's small, 25,000, 30,000, and pay it off quickly, pay it off on time, build your credit, and then your credit line just goes up and up. So
I think that's so valuable for people to hear, just in general. I think one of the biggest problems businesses have initially is cash flow, and
right.
Many businesses fail because of that. So, so you ended up in Houston. How did that happen?
I am from Western Pennsylvania, a very rural area just outside of the Pittsburgh city proper. Northwest Pennsylvania. And when I had graduated high school and my sister had already graduated college, the unemployment rate in our hometown was 25%. I mean, there was nothing to stay for. So my sister had a degree in biochemistry and she wanted to work in the medical center, and I knew some people here. And so we just loaded our car and drove down and started from scratch there too.
That
So,
takes some guts.
a little bit. But I have my sister, we were together, so we'd figure it out.
Oh, um, so a little bit about, so you said you have a sister,
Uh-huh.
but tell me about growing up. What was your early years like? Did you know what you wanted to do when you were 12?
Well, I love gymnastics. That was like huge. That was the Nadia Comaneci era. So I had grown up watching Kathy Rigby and Olga Corbett, but then my age, Nadia is my age. And so, around 12, I think I was starting to take real gymnastic lessons at a real gymnastics gym. And then by the time I was in middle school, we had a gym club, and then in high school we had a gym team. And so I would compete for the high school and for that private club. So I just kind of dove into that, and all that exposure to that private gym club. I always thought I'd have a gym. I was like, oh, I would love to own a gym like this. And so as a kid, I saw it, So there it is. Ended up there after sort of a convoluted way to get back to it, but
But you did. The
Mhm.
important thing. So you mentioned starting in business, and it took 7 years to get started. So
Yeah.
after you got started, did you have any really challenging times running the business?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just right from the start. So here I am. I have no money, right? And I threw everything I could muster into it. And we had a tropical storm out. I think it was Alicia. I think it was. And it stalled out right above Houston. And the winds, it picked this. I had this big, heavy wrought iron frame canopy over the door, and the wind just like whipped it up onto the roof, and it was like cartwheeling across the roof, just punching holes in the ceiling. And so that whole tropical storm was just pouring into my new business, and I was bailing water. I had big trash cans. I'd get one out the door, the other would fill up. It was awful. That was the first. So challenges start immediately. They never end. Facilities are always an issue in a storm area. There's always challenges with your staffing. That's, always something, right? You think you hired this really great person and you just can't believe sometimes what comes out of their mouth. And, so employee issues can be there, financial, the struggle, you want to give up, but you don't want to give up. You have people telling you should quit and go back to your job.
Yeah.
I had one mentor. He owned a steamship company. He was like this self-made millionaire too, and he's gone now. He died a few years ago. But I told him that people, family, and friends were saying just go back to my job, and because they saw me just killing myself, and he told me, don't you dare listen to them. He said, you're going to build an asset. Don't you listen to them. You just stick with it. And I said, okay. So I listened to him.
That's such a good point, because I was just talking to somebody earlier today, and I had mentioned an interview, podcast I heard Matthew McConaughey on, and he was talking about how his siblings didn't see his movies necessarily or anything. And I was thinking, like, I think my husband's never read my book or any of my writing. It's like your family and friends are not, for you aspiring business owners out there, your family and friends are not necessarily the ones that are going to help get you there, right? In
Right.
the confidence arena, maybe in the money arena, but not the confidence arena.
Like food and moral support and, helping out, like paint parties and, physical labor, free physical labor.
Yeah.
In that way for sure. But, they see you struggling and they know that you once had a really good job and that you should go back to it.
They want to help you stop the pain.
Yeah, I think so.
And they don't, a lot of people don't know what it is to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it takes some grit, right? You got to like roll up your sleeves. And I had a motto way back at the beginning. It was a bucket of Clorox and a gallon of paint changes the world. I mean, you just take this dirty old place and you go in there and scrub it and paint it, and
And
voila,
and
it's a beautiful new facility.
and you didn't do it alone. You had employees,
Yes.
and as we talked before, the podcast, you mentioned how important it was, the training that you did for these employees. And I know that makes a world of difference in how easy it is to run a business. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So employee training, it became a really huge part. In fact, I attribute really my success to my employees. I do. What happens in the gym world is you have to get these people sort of up to speed really quickly, and they need to feel like they're contributing on day one, right? Because if not, they're just kind of standing there going, I don't know why I'm here. So I had to really create a pretty significant training program and an ongoing educational program. We called it Discover University. And so I would offer these monthly courses for what I thought everyone out there needed to hear the most, for the month. And I paid those trainings. They were paid trainings, so it was extra hours. And one other big training I did was I called it New Employee Orientation. And that was like a 4 hour long meeting. And I would tell them how we started and how hard it was and why we're in the position we're in right now and where we're headed. And I would really reiterate to these people that there are lots of jobs out there. And so if you pick this one, I'm expecting that you're going to contribute, right? Because like no one's forcing you to do it. If you don't like it, don't do it. So I had a team of people who love gymnastics, that love little kids, and really wanted to be there, whether it was part time or full time. And then I invested a lot heavily in their education. So
Very important. That's so wise.
yeah, it made all the difference. And all of those employees are who the customer, they're facing the customer. That's the first people that the customer meets. And so let's say you're a preschool coach and someone comes up and says, how do my kids get on team? You can't say, well, I don't know. I just work here. Like you have to say, there's a process that we go through. Let me show you this chart. And this is how your child moves through our program. And it was this big wall chart, or if they were uncomfortable with that, their answer would be, I don't know all the details, but I know who does, and I'm going to take you to them. They were trained to learn about the whole organization, whether they worked in that department or not, and the organizational chart to who to go to for the right information. So that was important.
Now, I know that you took your students on trips, and you love travel. We talked about travel. So we have that in common. I love traveling also.
Yeah.
And so, but you went on some trips. How did that must have really helped your business, because I bet other gyms do not do that. That's brilliant to me.
Well, I've always appreciated the international scene and traveling. It was from my first 3 trips out of the country while I was in high school. And in 11th grade, I did study abroad for 4 months in Argentina. So like I just knew that as a kid, if I could travel to Argentina by myself, these kids could go anywhere. And the more I traveled, the more comfortable I was. And we had an opportunity, a local coach, a Chinese coach, asked me if I wanted to take a group of kids to China. So we went in 2007, the year before the 2008 Beijing Games. And so we got to see all of the Olympic venues under construction, and we got to go to the National Training Center and watch the national team train. Then as we traveled around the country, we stopped in different facilities where they train their athletes. They have a completely different training method than the United States. So it's real eye-opening for the kids. And I think they really appreciated, after that kind of a trip, they really appreciated the facility and, how we live here in the United States and how gymnasts are treated in the United States. And so it was a real eye-opener.
Yeah. You appreciate home a lot more.
Yeah.
But you had an experience, and so some of when you travel, and this is such a good lesson for the kids, they learn a little bit about um, how to face their fears.
Hmm.
So you had an interesting experience on the Great Wall,
Oh,
as
we
I
did, yeah.
recall. What was? Tell me about that.
Okay, so one of the little tourist excursions we went on was for to walk on the Great Wall of China. So we hiked up there, and we're up there roaming around, and the group kind of dispersed, but we were all generally there. But and then the storm rolled in, and my hair like went up, like I think I was going to get struck by lightning. So we all took off running, and I was with two dads and a couple of kids, and we found shelter under one of these guard outposts, like this big stone uh, cover, like a mile down. So we went running through the rain, and it was slippery and it was scary, and we're just running, and we get into under this little shelter, and the kids were really scared. And there was a dad, and I just love him for this. And he goes, "Okay, girls, this is what we're going to think about here. When you go back to school and everyone's talking about what they did for their summer vacation, if they went to Italy or they were at Disney World or they were on a cruise, and you're going to say, I was running down the Great Wall of China in a thunderstorm, and it's just, it's very exciting. It changed the mood. They weren't afraid anymore. They were brave. And, well, gymnasts are brave anyway. But those other extra real life experiences, not in the gym brave, but real life brave, I think that's really good for kids to experience. And when you travel, those kinds of things happen. So,
And you mentioned you have to be brave as a gymnast, also, which I couldn't have taken it. So tell me though, how did that help you? Because I think that helped you to have a little more perseverance than the average individual.
well, the sport, I mean, when you go to practice every day, I mean, you basically just keep falling on your face, right? You miss. You just hit the ground, you stand up, you do it again, you fall, you get banged up, but you still keep getting up and you keep trying. And so that's sort of a resiliency, and that takes a little courage there too to just keep going. It gives you a little grit, right? To push through, even if it's really hard. You don't cry, you just do it again. But there's a lot of courage in the physical risk as well. Once you get to a certain level, you basically just let go. And it's sort of a leap of faith. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust, that what you're about to do, that you can do it, like that you can.
So doesn't that sound like a good analogy for business?
Absolutely.
So you learn how to trust yourself
Mhm.
and your instincts, and same in business. You learned, well, running a business, how to trust your instincts. You also had a little bit of help from a group called WPO,
I
Women's
did.
Presidents Organization. So
Yes.
tell me about how that group helped you. Like, are there a couple of things that you can talk about where that difference for you?
Absolutely. So I joined WPO 15 years ago. So it was more than or less than the halfway point, right? So I hadn't even made it halfway in the business. But I was struggling because in the gymnastics world, most of when you go to these gymnastic congress and these different clinics, they really focus on the technical training, like your head position, shoulder angle, drills to help with flexibility. So it's real focused on the sport, the product, right? And they dabble in some of the business, like, to make sure that your business is is using everything it can, like how to do really good birthday parties, how to have all the little add-ons and things to help make the program robust. So, but they didn't have a lot of information on how to run a business. And, gymnastics people, well, may or may not be financial people, and knowing about KPIs and then all the problems you're going to face as an entrepreneur. So when I joined WPO, I mean, it was like this whole world of resources and new great ideas was just flooding in. And at that point, I was like, okay, which one of these things am I going to do? Because I can't do all of them at once. So I'm going to pick one or two things. But WPO, like the forum, those speakers, that they have at the forum, oh my gosh, these people are amazing. And so I learned a lot there. Some really good authors that you meet, and you read their books, and it gives you insight on things you can do in your company. And then the peer view, right, where we talk amongst ourselves to solve problems. First, it's nice to know that every person in any industry is faced with the basic same problems. HR, finance, legal, it doesn't matter if you're doing pots or pans or cartwheels. It's the same issues. And so that's a really big one, is the peer review, having people just kind of talk through it with you and share their experience.
So, and one thing that we learn in WPO is you're not giving advice, you're sharing experiences.
And that's a big difference. Most people don't listen to advice.
Right.
You hear it, but they're like, yeah, but that's you. That doesn't apply to me. And they still go along their path. Whereas a shared experience, when they say, okay, I'm faced with this really big problem, and they explain it, and you can say, okay, that happened to me, and this is what I did, and it made it worse. Don't do that. Or this is what I did. It worked fantastic. You might consider that. So
yeah,
I like that a lot.
I've been told when you give advice, actually, they tell you this in chapter chair training, you're putting the other person below you.
Mm-hmm. You know better.
You're sharing your experience, then they can relate to what you experience. I think that's the difference. So good. And I know you're starting your own chapter.
Yes. I'm
in
excited.
WPO. Tell me a little bit about that. Where is it going to be? How are you doing that? How many people?
We need to have 10 new members to start a chapter. And we had a recruiting event last week, and we had about 40 people come. Houston only has one chapter, and we're a city of 3 million. If you go out into the outskirts, it's probably closer to 5 million. And there's a lot of women business owners here. And so we want to expand the Houston area. And now that I'm unemployed, I said, well, I have time, I can help. So we're going to expand the Houston chapter. I think Houston could probably support 5 or 6 chapters.
Okay, so you hear that, Houston? WPO is expanding in your neck of the woods. Yeah, I am such a huge fan of peer groups, and WPO is such a dynamite group of really strong, really smart people. So you surround yourself with smart business people. Guess what? It helps increase your intelligence tenfold, I think. So.
Well, it's not a networking group, but you can network. And over the years, there have been many members who I've used their services. We had a staffing agency. I was like, oh my gosh, I need a new HR person. They find it for you, or they know someone that does do that and can help you. Or it's not networking, but you can network. And I got a lot of help out of the members in my group, and friendships. I mean, these are amazing people.
Yeah. So you've known these people for many, many years. When you were running your business, I want to go back to running your business and what that was like, because I think what is important in the peer groups and in this podcast is what can people learn as they're running their business. So next to WPO, as far as a great resource for your business, what was that second best resource?
Well, I read a lot, books for sure. You're stuck, you go to Barnes and Noble and sit there and peruse the business section. I'd spent a lot of time on management. I created actually a management training program. Longer term employees who looked like they were going to stick around, I would run them through a 4-day course over a month. And so management training, because that way when a position opened, there were a whole, slew of candidates that could take the position if they wanted it.
That's so smart.
Yeah, so that was good. And then I think they liked that they learned something there too. And I had people say, well, what if these people quit? I'm like, oh, well, so what? But if they stay, they're going to know what they're doing. And even if they're here for a short while they're here, they're going to contribute. So it's worth it 100% to spend time on development of employees. But that management training and management is really a big deal, at least in my business, but I think everywhere. I think everywhere management's important.
I agree. I agree. And don't you think it builds a little bit of loyalty from those people that you trained, not knowing that they were going to stay, but you trained them anyway?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, it shows that you care about their personal goals too. You know, you want your your employees' personal goals and their business goals to run in tandem, not perpendicular. You get to know them better, and then they get to know you, and they get to understand why the organization runs the way it runs. It answers a lot of questions, like, why don't you do it this way? And you're like, okay, well, look at this. And oh, that's why. I think those are really good opportunities. And it builds loyalty. I think so too.
As a matter of fact, you actually built your buyer.
Well, yeah. Well, she came pretty well prepared too. So, yeah, she was a head team coach at an area gym and had been for years. And then I think when she had her third child, she said, "I'm going to step out." And at that point, she was just doing meet directing, where I hired her to come and run the competitions, because that's like a whole nother line of work within the gymnastics industry. And so over those years, I got to know her, and she's like, I'm looking for a part-time job. I said, would you like to do team communications? And soon it was a full-time job. And then she's like, I always wanted to have a gym. I said, well, stick around. You might get this one. And lo and behold, that's what happened. And I'm so happy for her. So it's a dream come true for her. It's a great opportunity for their family. And it was perfect timing for me to step out and move on to other things.
Yeah. And speaking of moving on to other things, you also have a foundation that you started, a nonprofit. So tell me a little bit about the nonprofit, because you've had it a while. It's not something new, but it sounds like you'll have a little more time to devote to it. So what does that do?
So it's called the Discover Fitness Foundation, and I started it 15 years ago because over all of those years running the gym, there were a lot of special needs kids that were coming in. It was really hard to mainstream a lot of them. The goal was to mainstream, but with some kids, it's probably not going to happen at all, especially like nonverbal kids and things like that. And in gymnastics, you can participate at every level. So, you don't have to be like on this upward path of advancement. You can participate at whatever level you're at forever. And gymnastics is really good for gross motor development and coordination and depth perception and vestibular awareness and kinesthetic awareness. And there's so gymnastic, like for example, a lot of kids with special needs never learn to crawl. They might scoot, right? They never learn that locomotor motion. And so when you're in gymnastics class, I could set up something where they have to crawl under something to get to what they want to do, or, and so we could do things to, kind of fill in those missing physical gaps for that brain body connection. Kids that are we had a couple cerebral palsy kids in the program where they didn't have use of their lower body, but they could use their core, but they had a really hard time strengthening their core. And so one of the things in gymnastics that we use in the men's program is we put a bucket on a swivel, and they put their feet in the bucket, and they could do these revolutions like you do on pommel horse, where they swing around and they do the flares with their legs. So we would put these kids with their feet in the bucket, and they could develop all that core strength. And it actually helps with drooling and other things too. So not to mention respite for the parents. It's a little bit of time that someone else is taking the reins with the kids, and the kids are having fun and they love it. And so we've been doing that 15 years. We're actually having our annual meeting this coming Thursday. And it's where we report to all the donors on how much money we raised, what we spent it on. And it's just like our accountability. And so that's coming up this week. And then all the kids are back in school now, so the classes have started back up again. And special needs kids are just kind of near and dear to my heart. A lot of times they're not really welcomed onto the neighborhood ball team because they're not any good and the team's going to lose. So I'm like, well, I'll take them.
That's so funny. I had for a short period of time, a special needs softball team. And I'll tell you, it was scary when they were throwing the ball around or swinging the bat. They weren't watching for who was standing right next to them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a challenge, but good for you for doing that, and such a big need. And I am sure that Melinda Gates is listening to this podcast right now. So
Well,
how do you
right?
how do you do your fundraising?
So most of it, of course, is going to be like through individual donors. A lot of the people are families who have seen their own children really benefit from participation, so they get it.
Mhm.
And then we do some grant writing, and I donate a lot. We raise usually about $200,000 a year, and we keep about 200 kids in the program year round. We pay their tuition,
Yeah.
and so it could be at any gym, whatever gym's closest to their home. So we set
And
them.
so I'm thinking with this training and the gym participation, does that make them better students in school?
Oh, absolutely. And everybody used to think, well, it was gymnasts are like A-type personalities. It's not it. It's that like you learn how to process information really quickly. If you've ever seen Simone Biles where she does the double triple, so it's 2 backflips, 2 rotations, and 3 twists, all going on in 2 seconds. So that's like a really big amount of information to process very quickly. And so, not that everybody's training double triples, but these activities and combining rotation with a turn or a twist, it really gets your whole brain working. And a lot of gymnasts are like straight A students. They're very fast readers. They can concentrate and get through. They can plow through the work very quick. And I think it's like this mental training that the sport also really supports. So it's a great sport. That's why I love it. So
It's like a great sport and something I was never good at, but I do think that sports translates into your thinking process. So you get to you improve your strategic thinking because in any sport there's strategies. So yeah, I'm sure that it helps, especially gymnastics where if you do it wrong, you hurt yourself.
yes, you have to really focus, right? You got to pay attention. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really amazing. Um, you're going to be starting a chapter in WPO, and you've had the benefit of going to the WPO forums, and that's once a year.
Right.
Coming up in May in Miami.
Yeah.
So what was probably one of the best things that you've heard in listening to the forum speakers or just attending? What
Gosh,
did you get from that?
so many like really profound. Simon Sinek was fantastic. Oh my gosh, I'd have to look at the list but they have such great keynote speakers and they really know how to deliver this message. One of our chapter members, Jade Simmons, oh my gosh,
I was going to ask you about Jade because I became an instant fan when I heard her speak.
She's amazing. Just all of those speakers, that makes it worth it. I mean, it really does. I've loved going to the forum. I haven't gone every single year, but I've gone most years. It's so fun to be around 800 really impressive women. And yeah, it's great.
I don't think I've ever been in a place where the energy has been at such a level.
Yeah.
It's like, it's way past going to a rock concert. It's like a rock concert plus.
Yeah. It's an amazing group.
It is amazing. It is an amazing group. You have done a lot of things, and that's one of the things that I think as a chapter chair, you've run a business.
Hmm.
And so you know what it's like. And tell me a little bit about the chapter chair from your chapter, Becky.
Oh, Becky, she's wonderful. She just thinks the world of every person in the chapter. I mean, she really, in her heart, it's like she loves you. I mean, really, and wants to help you. Um, and she has such an interesting perspective. Now as the chapter chair, you're not really participating in the meeting, you're kind of guiding the meeting. But once in a while, like if a point that she thinks that she can contribute hadn't come up, she'll say something, and she has some really powerful um, guidance. I really love Becky. So
Well, she's a business person herself, so knows what it's like to run a business. Um, so just tell me about maybe 3 things that helped your business succeed.
mm, well, at different stages, I think different things. At the beginning, um, you know, my family feeding me. That was the
Always
beginning.
good to be able to eat.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna say, like, around the 4 or 5 year mark, um, I so this is kind of funny. I have, like, all these little sayings that I say to myself all the time, and one of them, it's not the people, it's the process. So, if we're struggling with something and you're just so mad, you're like, "Oh, these people making me crazy," and, it's not the people, it's the process. And there was a point in our growth where I call it chasing the money or chasing the dollar. We had 500 students, and we were on monthly billing. And so um, every month around the 20th, when it was payday, we're calling collections on all these people who hadn't paid their tuition that month. And around 500 students, you can't talk to 500 people every 30 days. Like, it's just too much. So I switched the billing. It was okay. So this was the driver. It was Christmas. It was December 20th, and you can't reach people. And people are like, "Well, we had no intention of coming in December." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I had to cover payroll. So I scraped together everything I could. I paid everyone. I was flat broke personally at Christmas, and I'm the one working like 20 hours a day. And I just couldn't do it anymore. And I said, I'm changing this completely. And I switched the entire way that we did billing. And I said, I'm going to only enroll people if they're coming for the whole semester. I'm not doing this every day thing, every month thing.
Good for
And
you.
and I thought about it, and I was like, what if people quit? Like, what if people don't want to pay $1,000 up front? I'm like, I don't have $1,000. I couldn't do it. And that was one really good lesson is don't think about your own circumstances that very likely is not someone else's circumstance. And so I said, you know what? I'm doing it anyway. I'm just going to do it. And I thought that we were going to have all these people quit. I had one person quit, one. And she came to talk to me about it. And I said, look, I have to do this change. It's not feasible for me to continue to run the organization like we've been doing it. And I didn't do it to drive you away from, I need you. I want you to be a customer here. But if the change has happened, I'm not doing it, and I think she did quit, but I changed it. And then people were coming to the front desk and writing checks for thousands of dollars going, oh, thank you. I can't ever remember this. So now they were signed up for the whole school year, and they didn't have to think about it. All they had to do was show up. It changed everything, and we jumped from 500 to like 750 almost overnight. So it wasn't the people. It wasn't these stupid people that wouldn't pay their bills. It wasn't these stupid front desk workers that weren't talking to the parents about money. It was the process. So change the process. That was a really hard lesson, but a good one. So when
Yeah.
something's not working, look at the process. That's, how can the process be made easier to follow by the customers, easier to understand by the customers and the employees? The process is really, really important piece.
So I think what you said is you had a problem. So sometimes like we curse it like, darn, I have this problem. And we think, oh my gosh, it's difficult. The world's ending. What am I going to do? And sometimes it's that problem that gets us to the next level.
Right. It's
And
true.
then,
You have to learn. You do not learn anything from success. Nothing. Success teaches you. Being dragged through the mud teaches you everything.
yeah, being dragged through the mud, kicked in the head.
Yep, true. That's where
Yeah.
you learn though. It is. And you learn through the mistakes and the failures and the frustration. And you learn how to do it better and then things get easier.
Yeah. And sometimes when things are going really hard, you find out which employees you can count on
Yeah.
and which employees you can't count on.
Yeah. It's
So,
true.
so sometimes those difficult times are a blessing. Um, a little bit, I want to ask you about the business transition.
Oh, okay.
I know it's always difficult, I think, for any business owner to sell their business. And so in some ways, I think you can use a broker. You don't have to use a broker on the size of the business. If you're a larger business, you might use an M&A guy. And then there's the question, should you get your attorney involved? Tell me about, I think you said you used a broker. How was that whole process?
So I did use a broker, and it was somebody in the industry, and great guy. Actually, it was helpful. But when I decided to sell it to an employee, um, it sort of was an expense I probably didn't need to incur. But he was really helpful, and but I think if you need a broker, I think you should look at your situation. I don't know that you need a broker if it's going to go to an employee. So, but if you want to sell it to M&A, right, somebody big, I left a lot of money on the table actually by not going, to one of these corporate buyouts. It was
So
quite a bit of money. But
yeah, a broker can take your business out to a variety of sources
yeah,
versus just one internal. I guess you probably didn't have a big due diligence process. And
not
then,
really because this employee had been working there for 8 years, and I knew them, the family, and they were prepared to do it. And of course, then they passed, whatever screenings they had to jump through for, financing, and the gym passed through that criteria as well. So it was actually pretty easy. I think that if you go through to go with a bigger group to buy you out, like I said, I left money on the table. But I think that they really need you to stay for, 2 or 3 years and navigate that transition with your staff. And for it to be successful, somebody needs to be in place that is going to show the staff how that's going to work. And I didn't want to wait 2 or 3 more years. So, and I really did want to sell it to this person, to my staff member. I really did. I wanted her to get it.
sometimes when you sell your business to the large corporation, the end results are not necessarily what you want them to be. I know that from personal experience. And you mentioned WPO helped you get ready for that.
Yeah.
What did they tell you as far as getting ready to sell your business?
So every seminar that I went to that addressed that topic, everyone was like, "You need to start preparing your business for sale years before you sell it." So, I was making the organization as free of me as possible, and I was creating, you know, lots of processes that it didn't matter who was in charge, so that it just was less and less reliant on any individual. And that takes a couple of years to get yourself organized in a way and to make it sellable, right? Like your math has to work, your books got to be right, your tax returns need to look really good, so you have to have maybe 3 years of really good tax returns. And so if you're planning on converting your small business into an asset, a sellable asset, you need to work on that a couple of years before you think you want to sell. So that was a so I had started and I got all that information from WPO. That's where I got it.
Just from some of the speakers at the conference, and then I know there's some individual speakers that go to the either Zoom or actually come to the meeting. So yeah, that's a good point. So and SOPs, creating SOPs or standard operating procedures are hard. Was there
Yeah.
any one that was the biggest challenge for you, or
Oh gosh. Performance management, tying our performance evaluations to our values and training your management to conduct those performance reviews in that way. I mean, writing them, I mean, it took a year just to write it. I mean, because we're running the business. It's not like you shut down and just dream all this up. You have to fit this in a couple hours here, a couple hours there, So it's when
so
you
I think
train
it's called
your
working on the business while you're working instead of
you
working in the business, you're working
that's right.
on the business.
Yes.
And I think that's where WPO can really help you with
Mhm.
what does that look like? Because business owners sometimes if you elevate your people enough, you're looking around like, well, what do I need to do?
Yeah,
Because they're
that's what
so
you want.
good.
Yeah, that's what you want,
It
It's
is.
absolutely, especially if you wanna sell. So I mean, there were some long-term families with their kids had moved up mostly into the competitive programs, right? Because the kids are there 30 hours a week and you see their parents every day and um, so those people knew me still, but most of the customers didn't know who I was. I actually went up to a customer one time. I had on my uniform, um, and I was just talking to them, and they were asking questions, and I'm giving them all the answers, and they and this woman said, "You sure seem to know the answer to everything." Like, kinda snide, and I said, "Well, I better, I own the place," and she, "Oh, okay." I'm like they don't know you, they don't know you, and it's good that they don't know.
True. That's very true. So tell me, you are a traveler. I
Yes.
think you had mentioned that you wanted to be in the foreign service
Mhm.
a long time ago, and now you have a chance to travel. Where are you going to go?
Oh gosh, my next trip, well, it probably won't be, until, next fall, probably, is gonna be my next trip. I still have a couple of big ones. Australia, New Zealand, is on there. I haven't been. Patagonia, southern Chile, that's on my and, Egypt. So there's still a couple big and I think I'd like to go back to Kenya because, I follow a animal rescue or elephant rescue there that I've been following and donating to them for years. I think I would like to go, maybe stay at their eco lodge. Maybe when I'm in
I
Egypt, I'll drop down just a little while, just south. So,
I would have to say I love Africa. I love Africa. I love Kenya. Staying in those tents and then having some big animal bump your tent in the middle of the night. So, those
exhilarating.
exciting moments.
Yeah.
Hmm I think
Yeah.
it was a hippo, who knows? But
They're the
yeah,
most
that gets
dangerous.
your heart going.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the pleasure of it's just wonderful to travel and have all those experiences. So and then thinking and speaking of experiences, it's really been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit
Oh,
and
you
hearing about your story and then what Carly is going to be doing in the future because it just sounds like you've got so many things you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm calling it a gap year. I gave myself a year to make some really big decisions about the direction I want to head for the next 20 years of my life. And so I'm giving myself a year to explore all of those things. And so WPO chapter chair is just one piece of it. And I'll be, and of course, the Discover Fitness Foundation, I'll continue with that. But if I want to open another business or if I want to do some like women's rights things or animal rights so I'm exploring what my options are and I have choices, lots of choices. So,
That's
um,
so nice. It's really nice to have sold your business, but initially, day one, or I'd say what, day 30, after you sold your business, did you get out of bed and think, what am I going to do today?
so the weirdest thing was like my daily rhythm got messed up. So I would go, I'd get up, I'd head to the gym in the morning. I would be there all day. If I had to run out for a meeting, I'd run out, I'd come back to the gym, and so I was finding myself, I would have like, let's say a 10 a.m. meeting somewhere and a 4 p.m. something. Well, I'd go to that meeting and I'm like, now where do I go? Like I had nowhere to go. I had to come back home or I'd go shopping or something. But it was like I felt a little lost because I didn't have a place, a physical place that I would go to between appointments. So that first month, that rhythm of my day was a little wonky, but that went away, and I'm actually busier now than I don't know how I was running the company with the schedule that was meeting.
Isn't that amazing? All
Yeah,
of a sudden, it's like, wow, I cannot squeeze another thing into today. So
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
In
Good.
fact, I was looking through my calendar, and from June 1st, when I sold the company till now, there's 3 days on my calendar that I did not have any commitments. That included Saturdays and Sundays. So, yeah. So I haven't slowed down at all. I'm hoping at some point in maybe November, I get like a couple of weeks where I can sleep in or not have to be somewhere or do something. I don't know. But I guess busy people get things done. And I've spent the last 26 years incredibly busy, my whole life, actually. Very, very busy. I don't think that's going to end.
I'm sure you're going to stay busy. And I look forward to that next. I look forward to hearing about your WPO chapter because I know it's just going to take off.
Yeah,
And I hope I get to see you. Well, I'm sure I'll get to see you in
yeah.
May at the conference.
I'll be there.
And so thank you very much for being on Per Her Perspective.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Per Her Perspective. I'm your host, Marla Noel. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss what's next. To go deeper, check out my book, Drama Free Management, a practical guide to moving teams from high drama and low performance to low drama and exciting results. To connect with me, visit my website, ocgrowthadvisors.com. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and perspective.